What is up everyone, it is Dee and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about tension and how to go about setting up tension in your sewing machine. I just felt like this is so necessary and it's so important to understand because literally if you do not have the right tension for the material that you are using, it can literally make sewing so frustrating. So the first thing that we're going to focus on is I'm just going to make an example out of this material. So this material goes by the name of calico. In fashion, we usually use this material to establish prototypes. By that, I mean, in terms of like finding out if before you can move on to the final stage in creating your garment, we use this material simply to just kind of check if the measurements that we use are accurate and if they're going to be able to fit our models or our bodies, depending on who obviously you're making this particular garment for. And then I also just want to show you guys a couple of few important pieces that I didn't show you in my previous video that I do feel that you need to take note of. So as you guys remember, I have my bobbin right over here. I've got my thread. I'm going to be using the black thread simply because of, black and white. I want you guys to see the contrast so you can see what I'm talking about. Then I also want you to pay attention to these few tools that I've put here. Okay, minus this. This one is not important because we already established that that is your bobbin case. So on my Empisal sewing machine, when I got these extra few tools. So I'm going to name them. So the first one, this is the button foot. So this foot, you usually put it on this area of your machine, this area right over here. This is your foot area. So you take this when you want to create your buttonhole. So before you can create your buttonholes, you first have to sew in the exact and precise measurements of your buttonhole or your button stand. Okay, it's not necessarily a button stand. I'm using the wrong words, but you basically understand what I mean. This is called a darnishing plate. So this darnishing plate goes in hand with this. So this darnishing plate helps you if you want to create an actual exact same size measurements of your buttons, your buttonholes, then you would use this darnishing plate. And in order to use this darnishing plate, you basically take this darnishing plate and then you will put it right over here. As you're aware, there are these two holes right over here, which I didn't know at first what they were for until I played around with my machine. So you're basically gonna insert this right over here. See? Exactly. And then with this, bear in mind that this foot, this is your foot. This is your foot. So this foot will go somewhere along these lines. So sorry, let me just set up this camera properly. There we go. So this foot will go somewhere along these lines over here. And then you'll basically set up where exactly you want it to stand. And then you will just lower it in there. And there you go. And now your foot is in. So if you see correctly, see that the foot is in. So meaning that you can now put your piece of fabric or the button stand that you'd like to start sewing in your buttonholes and stuff like that. So that's step number one. Now we are just going to disengage this. See, it lets go quickly. And then we're going to remove it. We're going to remove the darnishing plate as well. The darning plate, yes. Then we have these two foots. So this one, this is your standard one. This is called the zigzag foot, according to the sewing manual. Why you're not focusing? Okay, there we go. So this is called the zigzag foot, and usually we use this foot. Like when you get your machine, this is the foot that comes with it, and then you usually just put this foot over here. So if you are planning on using any of these stitches from A up until H, then this foot is definitely the right foot. So you can use this foot for straight stitching, and you can also use this foot for zigzag stitching. I will also see if I'm capable of using it for other types of thingies. And you also input this the same way you would usually put a foot. Sorry, just using one hand over here. Okay, there we go. And we're gonna just snap it in there. So there it is. It's nice, it's tight, it's snapped in, and now you can start sewing. So as you guys can see, I'm just gonna change my lever here and create the zigzag. So as you guys can see, it's moving. Okay, see? Okay, let me put it on H so that way you can actually see. This is the highest zigzag, see? So now you can actually move your it's creating the zigzag. So it goes in on both ends from one side to the other side without actually hitting this foot. So basically it takes the measurements for you. Then we're gonna output this one, and then we're gonna focus on our last one. And this bad baby here is called a zipper foot. So this zipper foot is basically helps you to install your zips in your garments. And one thing I like about this is that it provides on both sides, because what I understood from the sewing machines that we have at school, which are the industrial ones, usually it's one-sided. Like it would come out looking like this, basically. So you'd only have one side. So with this, you can have both sides. And one thing I like about this, it's so it's just versatile, basically. So you can snap it in on one side like this. So I'm just gonna put this in here. So sorry guys. I'm just gonna put it in there, and then we're gonna snap it in there, and then you see now it's on this side. So if you want to start okay, let me put the machine back to number one. So if you want to start sewing on this side, maybe if you want to start sewing on the right side of your zip, then you can go about doing that. And then if you want to move on to the next side, then you can just, you don't have to really change much. You just move it to the other side. You move it to your left hand side and then snap it in there. And then now you are sewing the left side of your zip in. And that's one thing I love about this. It's just really easy. It just helps you to just, move straight, fast and stuff like that. And it just helps you to just stay away from the teeth, but also sew as close to the teeth as possible, especially if you're like trying to work with like an invisible zip and stuff like that. It's so important to have the right foot for that. So I really love this one. I'm glad that, Empisal decided that they were just going to bless us with this for free. So yeah, it was definitely worth the buy. So now I'm going to set up my machine using the normal Zigzag Foot so that we can start working on our tensions. Okay, so I have gone ahead, I have threaded my machine, and this is how everything is looking like. So I've already set my material in there, and like I said, I'm going to be using the black thread so that you guys can see the contrast. So usually when you get your machine, the standard tension dial that you, or the tension number that you get would be number 4. However, yeah, between number 4 and number 5, this is like the standard ones, but we are going to start from 0 and work our way to 9. And we are going to use this number 1, this A stitch, straight stitch, running stitch, whichever one you want to call it. And I'm just going to show you guys how it looks like on each tension dial. Now, the reason why I'm showing you guys this is, first of all, it's important to know the tension dial. This way, your material can be sewn in perfectly, without the stitch or the thread acting some sort of way, acting up too loose or too tight, because it is important to know if your tension, if the thread's tension is too loose or too tight. Because if it's too tight, and say for instance the material is stretchy, then chances are the thread will definitely snap as the person wears it. And the last thing you want is to create garments that are just going to start falling apart when you wear them. You know what I'm saying? So it is important to learn this. And another thing that also goes along with tension is your needle. If you are sewing stretchy materials, you need to get a needle that is for stretchy materials. Another thing that is important about needles is that needles can also help you sort of like protect your material, because the moment you use a wrong needle on a wrong different type of material, chances are the needle may either open 2 bigger holes. Obviously over time the holes will close up, but obviously if you want to wear that thing, say today or tomorrow, you don't want to be wearing like ruined materials and stuff like that simply because of you using the wrong needle. So it is important when you go to a fabric shop, you ask them. If you're buying lycra, you ask them, I want a needle that is going to work best with this material. Then they will tell you the sizes and the numbers. I'm not going to go into that because I myself am still learning, and also I don't remember. So let's get into this. Okay, so now we have set up our machine on 0, and we are using type A stitch, which is the straight running stitch. And then I'm just going to set you guys up properly so you guys can see how it looks like. This is how the first stitch came out at 0 tension. And I just want you guys to pay attention. Look at how the back looks like. As you can see, the stitch is obviously loose. like it's really loose, and therefore it means that the fabric obviously can fall apart at any given time, because the moment a person wears this and the tension is not set right, then this fabric is definitely going to fall apart. Like the garment that you have constructed will definitely fall apart. So this is definitely not the right tension for this material. Let's move on. Now we're going to put it at number 1. Okay, let's put it at 1 and let's get to sewing. This is stitch number 2 at tension dial number 1, and this is how it looks like. But as you guys can see, it's still a little bit on the loose side. It's, you know, like you can see that the tension is starting to pick up, as you can tell the difference from this one and this one, but it's still loose. It's still loose. It's still loose. It's not the right tension. So let's move on to number 2. I don't know if you guys can see, but you can start to see the difference from the first stitch to the second one and the third one. Let's turn it over and let's see. So you guys can see here. I feel like in order to know the tension dial is not okay is when the stitch starts looking like this. These little knots here are not okay. They are not okay. It's still loose, but not as loose as number 1 and number 2. So you can tell that we're getting there. We are almost at the correct tension dial for this particular material. Let's move on to number 3. Okay, so this is how stitch tension dial 3 is looking like. And let's turn it over. And it's still not okay, but it is so much better than these first 3 stitches. But it's still, as you guys can see, it's not exactly, we don't want these knots, we don't want these little looking things over here. So we are going to move on to stitch number 4, which is usually the standard one. Let's see how this one goes. This is tension dial number 4, this one right over here, and this is how it looks like, everybody. Let's flip it over. Let's see how it looks like. So you can see it's starting to look a little bit better, just a little bit. So maybe we should go to tension dial number 5. Okay, so tension dial number 5 is giving me a little something, but I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. Or maybe it's because I didn't backtrack and just lock the stitch in, but it's really looking better. Like if you had to compare it, it's really looking better. Let's go to number 6. This right over here is tension dial number 6, and this is how it's looking like. What do you guys think? Let's flip it over. Let's see how it looks like at the back. Usually I would suggest you guys to do this with 2 layers of the material. I think you get best results with 2 layers, but let's see how it looks like with 1 layer. It's not bad. It's not bad, but I think we can do better. Let's go to number 7. Guys, we're literally 2 tension dials away from the high, like the last number. So let's see how it looks like. Okay, so this is tension dial number 7. And so far, I think I'm liking it. I love it. Let's see how it looks like at the back. Now you see, like, look at the major difference from that to this. I think this is beautiful. Now let's go to number 8. This is tension dial number 8. Let's turn it over. Now pay attention. See how it's looking like. Now it's actually doing what it needs to do. It's still a little bit on the loose side, but I do think this is simply because of I only used 1 layer of this material. I didn't put a 2, because usually you always kind of like use 2 layers of a certain material. But this is how it's looking like, and I think I'm loving this. I really am loving this one. So let's see how the last one will look like. Okay, everybody, and this is the last one. I am loving this, but you guys can see the difference. You can even see it here at the top. Like, I'm just thinking about how easy it is to kind of like unpick this one. Like, look at it. It's literally just falling apart. And this is the 0 one. This is the no tension dial, none whatsoever. And this is the last one. Let's see. Can we unpick this? See? It's sort of resisting, but that's simply because of I didn't backtrack. And this is how it looks like at the back. So as you guys can see, it's really important to set up your tension dial to the right material. And if you're going to test this at home, please test it on 2 layers of materials. That way you guys can see the proper results and stuff like that, because I do think that with thickness it just kind of adds, you know, to the best results. Like the thicker it is, okay, not necessarily the thicker it is, because at the end of the day you don't want to be having way too much extra excessive material that it's kind of like clogging your machine, because at the end of the day domestic machines cannot take up way too thick materials. If they did, I would be sewing denims right now. So yeah, so this is how it looks like, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, and don't forget to share, guys. Please, the girl needs this. Okay, so bye guys, love y'all.